we started Kitab Shama'il Al-Muhammadiyya, book about the qualities of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, compiled by Imam Abu Isa al-Tirmidhi, who died in year 279. We've read and roughly and briefly commented on two hadiths. We'll briefly just read those two hadiths and three other more, and that will be it for today, inshallah. الحمد لله وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. قال الشيخ الحافظ أبو عيسى محمد بن عيسى بن ثورة الترمذي. We said before, Al-Hafiz is one of the titles that exist in the hadith tradition. It means someone who memorizes 100,000 hadith. باب ما جاء في خلق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. A chapter, the Arabs, in Arabic tradition, they call a chapter. The word for a chapter in Arabic is bab, door. Right? And what does that mean? So in English we have a book that will have chapters to it. In Arabic we have a book that has doors to it. Has rooms, and those rooms will have doors to them. When you get into one of those doors, you understand what is in the room. You might understand some rooms if you don't really read the whole book fully, you're not going to understand the house, its fullness, its completion. So the word for chapter in Arabic is bab, babun. Babun bab ma jaa fi khalqi Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. A chapter on what has reached us, on the physical qualities of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam looked like. Then he says, وَفِيهِ 15 حَدِيثًا, and there are 15 hadiths on that. Last time we've read 2 hadiths. I'll just briefly read them again, and then we'll move to the third one. أخبرنا أبو رجاء قتيبة بن سعيد عن مالك بن أنس عن ربيعة بن أبي عبد الرحمن عن أنس بن مالك أنه سمعه يقول كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ليس بالطويل البائن ولا بالقصير ولا بالأبيض الأمهق ولا بالآدم. We explained those meanings last time. ولا بالجعد القطط ولا بالسبط. بعثه الله تعالى على رأس 40 سنة فأقام بمكة 10 سنين وبالمدينة 10 سنين فتوفاه الله تعالى على رأس 60 سنة وليس في رأسه ولحيته 20 شعرة بيضاء. Again, we had a lengthy discussion last time on that. The second hadith we've read last time was حدثنا حميد بن مسعدة البصري حدثنا عبد الوهاب الثقفي عن حميد عن أنس بن مالك قال كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ربعة ليس بالطويل ولا بالقصير. ربعة is someone who is neither tall nor short. حسن الجسم وكان شعره ليس بجعد ولا سبط أسمر اللون, means his hair was black. إذا مشى يتكفأ. These were the 2 hadiths we've read last time. The third hadith says, حدثنا. Who is saying حدثنا here? It's Abu Isa al-Tirmidhi. He says, حدثنا محمد بن بشار. Muhammad ibn Bashar told us, that is himself. يعني العبدية. حدثنا محمد بن جعفر. Then he's counting 3 people between him and the companion who had seen the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahabi. حدثنا محمد بن جعفر حدثنا شعبة عن أبي إسحاق قال سمعت البراء بن عازب. البراء بن عازب was one of the companions of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. Was from an Ansar. Where did the Ansar live? Where did they exist? Medina. So they were the people who assisted and helped the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم when he came to Medina. Al-Bara ibn Azib, when the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم came to Medina, he was literally 14 years of age. Right? Al-Bara ibn Azib wanted to participate in the battle of Badr, which was the first battle the Prophet ﷺ had with the disbelievers of Mecca. The Prophet said to him, "You are too young. You can't do that." And he participated in the battle that came next year, which was Ghazwat Uhud, when he was 15 years of age. البراء بن عازب يقول كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم رجلا مربوعا. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم was a man who was neither tall nor short. مربوع is someone who's in between. بعيد ما بين المنكبين. المنكبين, these are the shoulders. He says the Prophet was broad-shouldered. He had broad shoulders. Why do these things matter? Why is, again, like last time, we've briefly touched upon this. Why does it matter for us to really understand how the Prophet ﷺ looked like? We said it because it ignites our love to him. We said love is ignited by two things. إما بالحسن وإما بالإحسان. You love someone either because they are beautiful or because of their ihsan, because they act beautifully. The Prophet ﷺ was an embodiment of both, of al-husn wal-ihsan. He himself was beautiful and he acted beautifully. But there is another reason for that, for us to get to know the Prophet ﷺ. It gives you a different feeling when you come to the prayer. Think of this. You come to the tahiyyat, you say at-tahiyyatullah was-salawat wal-tayyibat. What do we say? We say Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. Right? What does that mean? It means the Prophet ﷺ is with us in the prayer. You say Assalamu alayka, I'm sending you my salams. And you don't say Assalamu alayhi. Right? Assalamu alayka, you are talking to someone who is there. And if you don't have any mental picture of that Prophet, what comes to your mind? Nothing. You're just uttering words. You don't know what you say. You just really, it's like a parrot. You're just saying stuff, but you don't really think about it. But when you get to build up, an image of the Prophet ﷺ that helps you really make sense of what you're saying. When I say Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah, I'm invoking an image, a mental image of someone that I'm somehow familiar with how he looked like. And these companions are trying to help us, have that image of the Prophet ﷺ, حتى نستحضر رسول, so that we may invoke, when we think of him, we can really, at least have an approximate idea of how he looked like, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, بعيد ما بين المنكبين, he was broad-shouldered. عظيم الجمة. Al-Jumma is when you have, long hair that reaches either your shoulders. If it reaches your shoulders, the Arabs would call it Lumma. If it reaches your low, they call it Jumma. So the Prophet ﷺ had hair that reached his shahmat al-udul, this low. عظيم الجمة إلى شحمة أذنيه, reaching up this low of his two ears. عليه حلة حمراء. When I saw him, he was dressed in a red dress. There are certain hadiths you might come across that in which the Prophet ﷺ talks about the prohibition of wearing red stuff. But we have many hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ himself where he would wear red clothes. This is an example of those hadiths. The hadiths that talk about him, that report his prohibition of wearing red stuff, they had a context to them. Either the Prophet ﷺ said that to a particular person, maybe because he was, proud of himself or something. They would always have a context to them. But he himself, Al-Bara ibn Azib, is telling us that he said, I've seen him wearing red stuff. ما رأيت شيئا قط أحسن منه. I've never seen someone who was more handsome than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. حدثنا, the fourth hadith says, حدثنا محمود بن غيلان حدثنا وكيع. These are again names of people who lived in between Abu Isa al-Tirmidhi and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is called, we said last time, isnad. Isnad is the names of the people who narrate a hadith. حدثنا وكيع حدثنا سفيان الثوري. Sufyan al-Thawri was one of the key, today we have the four madhabs, the Maliki, the Hanafi, the Hanbali, the Shafi'i. Sufyan al-Thawri is someone who lived in that time, and he himself would be an imam on his own. He had his own school of thinking. So he would be like Abu Hanifa, he would be like Malik ibn Anas. He is of that quality, of that status. We had almost like people talk about like more than 30 schools of Islamic law, of Islamic theology that existed in that time, the 2nd century of Islam. Some of them died out. Sufyan al-Thawri didn't have many students, as many as Abu Hanifa did, as many as Malik did. So those 4 schools, the Maliki, the Hanafi, the Shafi'i, the Hanbali, they remained alive because the teacher had so many students. Sometimes also because the state might support a certain school. Like with the Ottoman Empire, which school did they endorse? Exactly, the Hanafi school. The Ottoman Empire across the Muslim world, they have ruled for roughly 600 years. Which school did they really endorse? Was the Hanafi school. It doesn't mean they have really compelled every single school, every single region to become Hanafi. No, they said like when it comes to the stuff to do with politics and how the state runs, the Hanafi school will be really the most dominant. And Imam Sufyan al-Thawri was one of those imams to be as his own school. حدثنا سفيان الثوري عن أبي إسحاق عن البراء بن عازب قال ما رأيت من ذي لمة. Again, in this hadith, Al-Bara ibn Azib is describing the Prophet ﷺ not with Jumma, but with Limma. Limma is a little bit longer than the Jumma. He had a longer hair by that time. ما رأيت من ذي لمة في حلة حمراء أحسن من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. I've never seen a person who was more handsome, a person with a long hair that was more handsome than the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. له شعر يضرب منكبيه. He had a long hair that would be very moving, moving across his shoulders, from the back. بعيد ما بين المنكبين. He had broad shoulders. لم يكن بالقصير ولا بالطويل. He was neither short nor tall. حدثنا محمد بن إسماعيل. Who is Muhammad bin Ismail? Exactly, Muhammad bin Ismail al-Bukhari. We said al-Bukhari is one of the teachers of Abu Isa al-Tirmidhi. حدثنا محمد بن إسماعيل حدثنا أبو نعيم حدثنا المسعودي عن عثمان بن مسلم عن هرمز عن نافع بن جبير بن مطعم عن علي بن أبي طالب رضي الله عنه. Sayyidina Ali, of course, Sayyidina Ali. Ali was the 5th caliph. Stayed as a caliph for almost 5 years. One of the many scholars who believe that Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. What did they say? 4?
He's the 5th.
5.
He said he's the 5th Khalif.
Wasn't he?
If you can't Rasul, then maybe.
Oh yeah, you're right. It depends how you look at it. So Ali ibn Abi Talib, many scholars would say he was the first to accept Islam. Others would say it was Khadija. Others would say it's Abu Bakr. By way of reconciling these different views, they would say, the first, adult who accepted Islam was Abu Bakr, adult man. The first adult woman was Khadija, and the first young boy was Ali ibn Abi Talib. When the Prophet ﷺ became a prophet at the age of 40, Ali ibn Abi Talib, how old was he? Exactly, he was 9, 10 years old. He was a very young boy. And Ali ibn Abi Talib, last time we talked about the 7 al-Mughfirin, the 7 who narrated hadiths. The most, Ali ibn Abi Talib is not amongst them, but he was literally on the ball, on the verge of it. He narrated almost like 600 hadiths also. عن علي بن أبي طالب رضي الله عنه قال لم يكن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بالطويل ولا بالقصير. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم was neither short nor tall. He was in between. شثن الكفين والقدمين. شثن الكفين والقدمين. He had strong hands and strong feet. ضخم الرأس. The Arabs, they had two types of, again, Ali ibn Talib is describing according to the understanding of the people of the time. People would either be depicted as, قليل الرأس أو صغير الرأس, like someone with a very small head. Or someone who has when you think of us today, someone has like a well-rounded head. He's saying the Prophet ﷺ, ضخم الرأس was not, as if he's saying he didn't have a small head as such. ضخم الكراديس. Karadis is basically the joints of bones. You have joint bones, like the areas where, like the core, that area, the knees. He says the Prophet ﷺ had very strong bones. طويل المسروبة. المسروبة is the hair, the chest hair that goes down to the belly button. So the Prophet ﷺ had that hair. إذا مشى تكفؤا كأنما ينحط من صبب. When he walks, as we said last time, the Prophet ﷺ, the way he walks would always reflect who he is. It's a confident walk, not an arrogant one. It's a walk of someone who has something to do. He's not swaying, he's not playing around. Right? Think of if you are coming down from a hill, descending from a hill. Do you sway, or you become so serious and you try as much as possible to really walk with a sense of confidence, and you take it seriously? He said the Prophet ﷺ, this is the way he used to walk, as if he was always coming down from a hilly place or a steepy place. He is serious. Not an arrogant walk. It's a confident walk, a serious one, a walk of someone who is awake of what is around him, which reflects his own inner being, inner state. One of the key diseases the Quran speaks of is al-ghafla, someone in a state of ghafla, heedlessness. When you are unawake, you are not really fully aware of what is around you. Even though Allah has given us minds to think with, and that we are probably the single most confused being, and the single most forgetful, the single most heedless being. Because then Allah has given us all this, and yet we forget about it. We just recited this passage of Surah Al-Nahl. We deny Allah's blessings. The Arabs had there is a proverb that says أحيار من ضب. When they see someone who is really looking, how does the lizard look? The lizard will always be looking right, left all the time. Right? Well, why is that? Why does the lizard do that?
Aware of its surroundings.
Exactly. It's the lizard is always aware of dangers. Needing to look right, left. The Arabs, when they see someone who's really been in a state of, consciousness, a state of awareness of what is around me, they would say, أحياء من ضبن, is more conscious than a lizard. The opposite of which is our own situation, a state of ghafla. The way the Prophet ﷺ would walk is one of yaqaba, one of wakefulness, one of presence. He is aware of what he is doing, not just outwardly but also inwardly. So he says, إذا مشى تكفؤا كأنما ينحط من صبب. When he walks, as if he's coming from a hilly place, descending from a hilly place or a steepy place. لم أر قبله ولا بعده مثله صلى الله عليه وسلم. I have never seen anyone like him, neither before him nor after him. Because Ali, I didn't see anyone like him. That is something that, that statement is often, you would always find it with how the companions describe the Prophet ﷺ, the fact that they have never seen someone like him. ما رأيت شيئا قط أحسن منه. I've never seen someone who's more handsome than him. And here Ali is saying, I've never seen someone like him. Neither before nor after. And inshallah we shall stop here because the next hadith is quite long, but it's very important as well. It will give us even a deeper insight into how the Prophet ﷺ looked like. We have 15 hadiths here. Inshallah, after we're done with that, we'll move to Khatam and Nubuwwah, the Prophet ﷺ. Inshallah, we'll discuss that. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك صلى الله عليه وسلم.